On this edition of Alberta Dugout Stories, the podcast, we take a look back at 2020 in our year in review, and we lay out our game plan as we head into 2021. Welcome to episode 114 of Alberta Dugout Stories, the podcast. I'm Joe McFarland. It has been a year, hasn't it? Well, 2020 certainly didn't work out the way anyone could have guessed when January started, and we certainly are in that same boat. Right around now, we're usually doing stories on Baseball Alberta award winners, maybe doing a quick season in review with just a few of the pros. But those things didn't happen. So we want to take advantage of this downtime, and we've decided to slow things down a bit ourselves. This is our season in review episode, but it'll also be our last for the next few weeks. We'll get to that and much more, so let's get right to it with our guest and ADS co-founder Ian Wilson. Welcome back, my friend.
Very glad to be back, Joe. How are you doing today?
Fantastic, my friend, although it does come with a bit of a bittersweet note, in which we will get to in just a little bit. But I want to start off talking about 2020. We had some pretty big expectations heading into the year, to be honest. We were coming up with lists on who to watch player-wise. We were plotting out road trips to check out as much WCBL action as we possibly could. We had thoughts on where we wanted to take ADS as a business, per se. We were dreaming big, let's be honest here. And then March happened, and I kind of want to start there. How are you going to remember 2020 from a baseball standpoint?
Wow. How much time do we have here? Yeah. Well, all our predictions came true, right? So that was a good starting point. Yeah. I mean, especially reflecting back to that period of time, it just kind of you could kind of see it. You could see the COVID-19 and the pandemic kind of creeping a little bit up on us as events unfolded around the world, and then you started to see it in the college levels, and games at first being postponed and then canceled, and then it became pretty real pretty quickly once the major leagues over that 1 or 2 day period when they started just like shutting things down en masse, and that was a lot to deal with. I mean, first and foremost, at that point, I just remember feeling really bad for a lot of the student athletes that we are in contact with and that we support and cheer on, and we want to see them do well, and you're kind of looking ahead to the draft and things like that, and then all of a sudden you're like, what's happening now with their eligibility and their school year for this year and next year and all of those ramifications. So definitely a huge sense of loss over that. Some of that we did chronicle along the way, and and then following suit on that was the WCBL season, which of course is the big ticket in Alberta and Saskatchewan for sure when it comes to baseball and what the paying customer is going to go check out. So when that ultimately was canceled, and full marks to them for how they handled it. I thought they waited basically as long as they could before they pulled the plug. That was, I mean, it was just kind of a really an emotional time in a lot of ways, because there's the realization, hey, I'm not going to be grabbing my camera and my tape recorder and going to a ballpark, and I don't know when that's going to happen again, and when I'm going to get to enjoy, not even just as someone who chronicles some of those games, but just as a fan and someone who sits and enjoys it. So that was a big thing to kind of deal with, and I remember kind of coming to peace with that, and just being like, well, this is how it is. This is a good time, I guess, to spend time with family and enjoy my kids and spend lots of time with them. And then you look at Major League Baseball. I started getting excited about that when they rolled out a plan to go ahead with that. And I'm like, great, I can watch Mike Soroka every 5 days, right? And just see what he's gonna do. And then like that Mike Soroka's injury, of course, we've gotten to know Mike a little bit, and of course we've been huge fans of what he's been able to do and achieve, and really excited about the Braves season, with good reason, as we saw. They had a really good year, but when he suffered that season-ending injury, that just really was a kick in the gut. And I remember really being rather rather disillusioned for a few weeks about baseball, and just like, I really did get to a phase of, oh, whatever. Like, yeah, it's there.
Is it September yet?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and then you had COVID early in that season. You had COVID cases cranking up. We saw Miami, like, at that point I thought they're not going to get through this. This is going to be really, really bad. And credit to Major League Baseball for pulling off a season. I think that is an achievement under all those circumstances. And then a World Series that was and a playoffs for that matter, that was incredibly eventful and entertaining in a lot of ways. And the World Series itself, I mean, that Game 4, you had the heroics of a unheralded, unknown player, like flying in the outfield after this bizarre and just historic kind of play in Game 4, and then the Snell decision, which just pitted gut feeling versus analytics in that final game, and Turner taking the field even though he's COVID positive. So it was just kind of like, wow, there's a lot to talk about and think and assess, but it wasn't like I don't know, it just wasn't really a great feeling by the end of it, which is unfortunate, because I do think, like I said, I think there is plenty of entertainment value, and I was thankful ultimately to be able to watch playoff baseball, watch a World Series. So again, there's a lot to enjoy there, but just all over the map. Yeah.
An emotional roller coaster. Unfortunately, that roller coaster was stuck inside of a phone booth. It's sort of how I've come to envision this. And from an Alberta perspective, and from what we do perspective, it was an interesting year because we'd gotten almost used to, over the last couple of years, focusing in on the stories of the athletes and some of the big things that they're doing at the college level and what they might be bringing to the table here in Alberta and Saskatchewan over a couple of month period during the WCBL season, and maybe some of the high-ranking kids that were drafted last year maybe getting a chance to play some minor league ball. That didn't happen this year, and so there's a lot of give and take that you and I had to kind of go through and kind of assess, and then realized at the end of the day that this was weirdly a bit of an opportunity for us to maybe check a few of those things to do items off of our shopping list, so to speak, because all of a sudden we could focus in on some of those stories from 100 years ago or 50 years ago or 20 years ago that maybe we wouldn't have been able to get to because we were busy in the day-to-day coverage of what we were doing with WCBL and Baseball Alberta Awards, which is what we would be focusing in on now. Those kinds of stories have fallen by the wayside, and it's allowed us to focus in on some pretty unique and interesting stories from yesteryear.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the good things about this year. There was just kind of that passion project element to a lot of the stories we were able to do. Like there were certain stories that I'd look at, and basically I'd be like, do I want to do this? And if the answer was no, it was just very easy to dismiss things that were, I don't know, either of nominal interest to me, or there just wasn't that compulsion that kind of comes along with the live baseball product. You kind of feel like you're trying to sync things up with the season as it unfolds, and this time it was just able to look at some of those stories. So look at Joe DiMaggio and Marilyn Monroe's time in Alberta, and that was a lot of fun to do that one. And the 1988 Metasnap Blue Jays and Dean Linden camping out at the ballpark, like just a lot of fun to really take time and explore those stories, those historical pieces that I love to tear into.
Do you have a favorite story that you've been able to cover over the last 12 months or so?
Yeah, I mean the '88 Blue Jays is one that it got a lot of attention, but also it really just was a lot of fun to research and look into. And for those unfamiliar with the story, the 1988 Medicine Hat Blue Jays of the Pioneer League were one of the worst teams in pro baseball history. They set a record for futility and most losses in a season. And just to kind of go into have a look at that train wreck was was a lot of fun. Like the headline was on the team was on the story rather was the best of times on the worst of teams, and there really was kind of this magical quality to the team. As you've got a rookie GM in Dean Linden, who it was 19 years old when he was hired. Like this wasn't the era where younger managers were being hired to pro sports teams. Like this was very unusual that have a guy who his experience was being 2 years removed from high school and doing promotions at a hotel that was known for its strip club. Stepping into the GM chair of a pro baseball team. So his even being there was kind of interesting in its own right. And then to follow the team, and you look at all the I was going to say ups and downs, but downs.
Mm-hmm.
Like they started the season with, I think it was a 16 game losing streak or something like that. And that's when Linden decided to camp out at the ballpark as a publicity stunt. And, he's down there avoiding sprinklers and, worried about tornado warnings and, birds kind of pecking at him and all that kind of fun stuff, and capturing the attention of the media across North America, including David Letterman's show, which was interested in having him on. And then guess what? They win. So the losing streak's over and he doesn't get to appear on Letterman anymore. And, and then they found later they had players on the team that were there illegally. And one of which, I don't think I actually mentioned this in the story, but the pitcher who snapped their losing streak to start the season was one of the illegal pitchers
No
that they
way.
had. So, yeah. So there are just so many elements of that. That was also the year that Bull Durham came out, and that's a beloved
Mm-hmm.
baseball movie. There was actually a tie-in. The guy who was supposed to be the GM of the Jays, of the Blue Jays, he was apparently not in the country legally either, and he had to go back to the States. Well, he ended up running the concessions for the Durham Bulls
Oh, geez.
at the time this movie comes out. So there are all these just kind of interesting links and ties. And Rocket Wheeler, who's the manager of the team, as you're reading through the files, you just see him go through his own crescendo of emotions and tactics to spur on his team to get a win. Like he realizes that you're trying to develop the talent, but those losses just after a while are just crushing the team. And just to see, you could just see it kind of, he's being positive at the beginning of the season. No, we're good. Like I really like this and I really like this. And then by the end of the season, it's like, the one of the other coaches is like, I think he's not good. Like I don't think his health is doing too well. He looks like he's gonna have a heart attack, and like all these things. And and Rocket Wheeler coincidentally ended up being one of Mike Soroka's coaches in the minors as
Mm-hmm.
well. So yeah, there's just so many facets to that particular story that I really did love that one. And yeah, it was one of those ones where it was a long piece, but it could have been a lot longer because you do have to kind of keep it to a manageable length.
Kind of feels like that one should be a movie at some point down the line. I want to ask this part, though, and it comes back to the research pieces. How did you even happen upon that story to begin with, especially the camping out part?
That's a good question. I knew that the Jays had some historically bad seasons. Like I knew they had a record, the record for the worst Pioneer League season, which and then so I kind of started out thinking, oh, I wonder if this is the very worst pro baseball season that's been recorded, which it wasn't, but it's right there. It's like top 10 or bottom 10, I guess, depending on how you look at it. And and then basically kind of as you pull one thread, you kind of discover a few more, and then I think I just read there's a LA Times piece about Lyndon and his camp out, and it just kind of snowballed from there. And like I said, there are just so many facets to that story, and even the players who had come from Venezuela and were there illegally, basically they just lied about their age, right? Like they wanted to be considered prospects. They wanted to be, they thought that was their only way in. They were still pretty good players, but you can't, if you're 30 years old, you're not really going to sign on anywhere, right? So, and of course that was pre 9/11 and pre terrorist concerns, where that would be a bigger deal today. Concerns about having bad paperwork at the border and that kind of thing. So, it just, but that element of the story I didn't even really dive that much into. And of course we had Dean on the podcast as well. And he's super engaging guy and very fun to talk to. And he tells a good story as well. So that helps.
One of the things that we were able to do as well, not just focusing on the teams, but also on some of the players, whether it was, that inaugural 1985 Calgary Cannons team and having guys like Pat Casey and Darnell Coles and others on the podcast and eventually writing stories. But you also wrote stories on Devon White's time with the Edmonton Trappers and Dante Bichette's time with the Edmonton Trappers. I mean, we were able to get into some of those stories as well, which is pretty fun to do as well.
Yeah, it is. I mean, there's we talk a lot about the Pacific Coast League days, and I confess I get a little bit angry at people who are like, oh, I wish we had those days back, and I'm at that angry old man on the porch phase of like, they're not coming back. You just just forget about that. But having said all that, it's that idea that you just be incredibly thankful that period of time and that's part of our history and that existed, to have White and Bichette come through here, and is just we were lucky to have, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's a guy named Tony La Russa who's kind of been in the headlines, making headlines lately for all the wrong reasons, but he was managing the first MLB team that we haven't done a story on this yet, but we've done some social media on it. But he was managing the White Sox when they became the first MLB team to play in Alberta. And there's some fun stories involving La Russa and his visits to Alberta as well. But and a spoiler alert as well, we've got a piece on a different Trapper coming out very soon. About Fernando Valenzuela, Fernando Mania, the Canadian edition. So working on that right now. I'm hoping to have that up pretty soon. So watch for that. And that's an interesting one too. That's another character from our baseball history that has been fun to track down.
Fascinating in that you actually took the lead on the story, although I did a little bit of research on it because I was thinking about doing the exact same story a while back, and so I was reading up some of the newspaper articles from those days just to see how that 3-3 record over 7 games and an ERA over 7, if memory serves me right, how that all came to be. And apparently there's a bit of a connection in that more to Alberta, in that it was the other Alberta team, the Calgary Cannons, that did a lot of damage to Fernando Valenzuela during his time here.
Yeah, they loved seeing him. they were really happy to have him visit, and he did pitch against the Cannons in Calgary as well. But they did kind of light him up. Valenzuela at that time, it's an interesting career arc because he wasn't done. He wasn't at the end of the road. It wasn't, there's another Edmonton Trapper, Steve Rogers, a longtime Montreal Expo, who who in his final pro season, he came to Edmonton. He was recovering from a shoulder injury, and the comeback ended there. He didn't make it out of that 1995 season, or 85 season, sorry. And Valenzuela was quite different. He and an interesting cat too, because his English still wasn't, despite all the time in the major leagues, wasn't great at that time. So you're not getting these stellar quotes or expressions of communication from him, at least in English at the time. So he definitely still had some talent. If you look, he would give up runs and he'd give up hits, but he wasn't necessarily issuing a lot of walks. He was still getting strikeouts at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So there was still enough there. And then I think it was 1996 with let's say the Padres, but where he actually, I think he won 13 games in the majors. So, a good 5 years after his time with the Trappers, there's still something there. He still had gas left in the tank. And, it's just hard to figure, but he was only 30 years old when the Dodgers released him, and he ended up coming to Edmonton for a short time. So it's not like age was a factor, and no, he didn't really ever look like a peak physical specimen. But that's pitching isn't all about whether you got a boiler or not. So.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of stories that are coming around the bend, wanted to get into sort of where we're going from here as Alberta Dugout Stories, because I'm sure you're listening going, okay, why is it that you guys are putting a year in review podcast together in the middle of November? Well, Ian and I have come up with a bit of a battle plan, and it involves actually taking a little bit of time off. That's the beauty and the benefits, I suppose, of being a startup, of being a slow journalism, so to speak, is we can kind of delegate and relegate things and kind of, I'll say, pick our own schedule. And one of the things that we didn't really get to do over the first 3 years is really take our foot off the gas. We really kind of went hard at it for a while, and 2020's taken a bit of a chunk out of us, to say the very least. I mean, from a personal level, and I can speak to my own side in a little bit, but you and I have texted back and forth constantly over the course of the last 3 years, and there came a point probably mid last month where we said, maybe it's time to slow her down just a little bit. And so we're going to take the podcast and put it on the shelf for 6 weeks, 7 weeks or so. Wait until the new year to kind of ramp things back up again. Allows us to kind of get caught up on some of the administrative stuff and also to kind of catch up on life as well. And I wanted to get your side of things as far as maybe being able to take advantage of some much deserved time off.
Yeah, I mean, it is a little bit bittersweet because I do love the contributions that I make in terms of stories and doing this podcast as well, and social media and all the stuff for Alberta Dugout Stories. I think it's been a lot of fun to do. I enjoy doing it, but like you said, it's been a year. It's been
Mm-hmm.
it's been a year for the ages in so many ways, and like not just in terms of baseball and sports and but just the world and life and health and family. So there's been a lot of I actually did watch I watched a lot of sports. I watched a lot of hockey and a lot of baseball when they were on, because I actually was really appreciating them. For so long that you just kind of go along and you're it's always there. The sports are always on in the background, and then when we did have the pause, it actually did. I was like, whoa, like
Mm-hmm.
what do I do now? It's kind of like the weather went away, right? Like, what do I talk about now? What do I do with my hands? Like, it's just one of those things where you're a little bit lost, but when you're fired back up again, I was like, well, I'm going to enjoy this. I'm actually going to sit and watch. I'm not going to be on my phone while a lot of these games are on. Doesn't mean I watched every game, but I did want to, sit down and take it in as much as I wanted to. And, I think that was kind of, something broader going on there as well. I hope a lot of people have kind of done the same amount of reflection in their own lives about priorities and things that are important to them. And of course, I have young kids that are immensely important to me, and I want to be present and there with them as much as I can. So I think that's a big part of, us doing our own pause at this time of year. And of course, it coincides nicely with the fact that there's no, this is a kind of a dead time of year in terms of baseball. You just look outside and see the snow. There's not going to be a lot going on in and around our areas in terms of baseball happening, and just baseball on TV either. So unless you're really looking to make a lot of work for yourself, it just seemed like a good time to be like, you know what, let's take the time that we need to be with family, to focus on things that are important to us. And I should note as well, there are some other baseball projects that we've got on the go that are not all Alberta dugout stories. So I do want to take a little bit of time to focus on some of those projects as well. So I'm not entirely stepping back from baseball at this time either.
Yeah, and from my standpoint, a couple of big life-changing things have happened over the last few months. Obviously, we took a little bit of a break in the latter half of July for the birth of my son. So that was an emotional high. And then a week later, I happened to be, I don't want to call it an emotional low, but it was certainly stark contrast to that emotional high was I lost my full-time job. And while it is a little bit... It's been easier to swallow because it's not like I'm strapped for cash or anything of that note. It's nice to be able to have that opportunity to, I guess, kind of unwind. And one of the things that I've been really lucky to have been able to do over the last little while is to focus in on not just family life and be Mr. Mom, but also be able to focus a little bit more on dugout stories. That being said, as anybody who's had a kid can attest, they take up a lot of your time, especially in the sleep deprivation side of things. And so it'll be nice to maybe catch up on that side of things. And as you mentioned, over the next 6 weeks, 7 weeks or so, it gives us a chance to kind of catch up on things, because I think we've allowed some things to maybe, whether it be on the website, for example, with the sponsors and the partners side of things, to be able to kind of rekindle some of those relationships again, maybe to clean things up a little bit more on the website side of things, clean some things up on the social media side of things as well. And as you mentioned, we've got our partnership with the Western Canadian Baseball League, which we'll get into in a second, to be able to kind of foster that relationship as well and make sure that we're doing everything we can to maximize that partnership as well. So there's a few different facets that I think over the next 6 or 7 weeks we'll be able to kind of focus in on. And by no means does that mean, hey, we're not going to be visible on social media. I still will continue to schedule birthdays and all that kind of thing. And I have a few Q&As from past episodes of the podcast that I'd like to have on the website as well. I look at our recent conversation with Jonah Arsenault, look at Caden Zeroni, look at Sean Adamanchuk. There's a few others that I haven't been able to have the time to actually go and listen to them and type them out and transcribe them. So I'll do that over the next 6 or 7 weeks as well. And so like I said, by no means is this going to be we are going black for the next 6 or 7 weeks. It's just a matter of being able to kind of take a bit of a step back and be able to enjoy a little bit more family time. That's
great. And I think there's ebbs and flows too with our work, as especially if I'm sure some of our followers have noticed some of the content that we're doing, that it's not always, this story coming out once a week or anything like that. It's been, there's been gaps of 10 days, 2 weeks here and there, or, bursts of a few stories within a few days. So it has been all over the map that way. And some of that just reflects this bizarre year that we're engaging in, witnessing, avoiding, trying to take part in here and there. So
a little bit of everything.
So no, it really is. Yeah. So but I do think it's a good time to recharge and restock and hopefully give podcast listeners some time to catch up. I know a lot of people that do get behind on the podcast as well. So hopefully they can catch up and hear all the great work you've been doing as well, Joe.
And obviously, the other aspect of this is it allows us to maybe have an AGM, although it'll have to be by a Zoom instead of our usual go to a neighborhood pub and have a beer or two and contemplate an AGM of sorts. But at the same time, it does allow us to talk a little bit about 2021 and as much as we can plan, because let's be honest here, the way that the pandemic has been going and the way it's been shifting and changing direction by the day seemingly instead of by the week or by the month, it's hard to predict whether or not we're going to have a Western Canadian Baseball League season. It's hard to predict whether the Edmonton Riverhawks are going to make their debut next season. It's hard to predict a lot of those things, but it does give us a little bit of an opportunity to maybe map out some of the things that we want to focus on should things return to quote unquote normal at some point, and maybe pick a few storylines as well that we can focus in on. I look at 2021 and the first thing that comes to mind is that'll be the 40th anniversary of the creation and debut of the Edmonton Trappers. I mean, we're going to mark that anniversary. We're going to also, I think, mark the anniversary. It'll be 100 years since the Calgary Broncos won their second straight Western Canada League championship, although it came with a less of an asterisk than the 1920 championship came with, which I wrote about. So there'll be those opportunities as well. And so I'm curious from your standpoint, as you look ahead to 2021, what kinds of things do you think we're going to be focusing in on? What kinds of storylines do you think are going to be front and center should things return to quote unquote normal?
I think I'm going to take my cues from this year and make no predictions for 2021. I'm not a glutton for punishment, so no. I think the big thing is going to be that we'll obviously be watching is the return of baseball at a lot of levels.
Mm-hmm.
The Major League Baseball level, it'll be interesting to see what kind of dates are put out and what the strategy is for that. Obviously, MLB did get a successful baseball season completed, and it wasn't that bubble format that the NHL went through. So we'll be keeping an eye on what the plans are for MLB. And also, one of the things that I don't even know, I'm processing a lot of this, but I'm really fascinated by the minor leagues changes and developments, and I just don't really know where exactly that's going, other than there will be less minor league baseball teams. We all know that, but I'm really curious to see what the evolution on a bigger scale is going to be. The Appalachian League just kind of converted to a summer collegiate model, and we've got some changes on the horizon that are going to be fascinating, and even as we watch those, I'm not sure we'll be able to predict what some of the long-term fallout, might be the wrong word, but developments or evolution will be from those changes. But I think on one level, as I was saying, with regards to like AAA baseball, AA baseball, and people who want a return to that, I think we really need to recalibrate the baseball products that are in our backyard, and really be like, this is what a lot of the communities. This isn't just a Canada thing anymore.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the communities in the U.S. are really kind of getting the same caliber, the same product in their neighborhoods, and they're taking it in. So I think that'll be interesting to see. And as far as WCBL goes, I really hope that we're able to see the return of that league, and that just some kind of normalcy of that of that season. It was tough to lose that for a year, and I don't know that we want a repeat of that. Again, they made the right decision, but we don't want to see a repeat of that in 2021. There's a curiosity factor with the West Coast League moving in. I will be fascinated to see what they have to offer and how it does compare to what we've seen in the WCBL. So yeah, I mean, but as far as storylines and predictions, I'm at a loss. Obviously, I should mention, of course, Mike Soroka. We really want to see him return to form and just be able to be a part of that great Braves core and see them back in the playoffs next year. That will definitely be one thing we're rooting for. And a lot of the the minor league players that we've become attached to and interested in, I'll be curious to see what their journeys are like in the new year.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to allude to guys like Matt Lloyd, like Eric Sabrowski, guys who were recently drafted, who had gotten a minor league season under their belt. Unfortunately, with Eric, obviously with the Tommy John surgery, how that recuperation was going to happen, and LeRon Smith. There were so many different guys who had made some inroads, and so it's going to be curious to see. And from that standpoint, is how does that trickle down with the contraction of minor league baseball? How does that affect, say, the Major League Baseball draft? Is it going to be 20 rounds from here on out instead of the 40 rounds? Is it going to be 10 rounds? And what does that ripple effect look like for Canadian products? And from that standpoint, how does that affect maybe even, I'd say, some of the academies we have here? And do they maybe recalibrate a little bit more to maybe shelter some of the expectations for those kids who think maybe I can be the next Matt Lloyd or Eric Sabrowski down the line? So there's some interesting side notes to all of it, and who knows whether or not we're going to be able to fully embrace it all or fully understand it all, because let's be real, we're still in the midst of a pandemic. And last I checked, I haven't played any slow pitch in a calendar year now. And that's maybe the most disappointing part of it all, because at least you and I had that weekly debrief that we could have post Rad News beers.
Yes.
To be able to talk things over. We haven't had that in over a year now, so I wouldn't mind having that again. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I can't wait to see your first throw to first base coming out of the lockout. I don't know, whatever you want to call it, lockdown. That would be. I'll pay money to see how accurate that throw is. But no, of course I missed swinging the bat. I should. Full marks to my beautiful wife, who bought me a batting tee and a net for the backyard for after the pandemic hit. So I actually was able to take some cuts over the summer and get some weak hacks in.
Well, I'm glad that you were able to do that, because I was a little concerned, because I was going to throw you under the bus. If you're going to throw my inability to throw to first base under the bus, I was going to throw your ability to pop up to first base constantly under the bus as well. So At least you're getting some practice hacks in.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's some things you can always count on. My my inability to hit squarely is one of them. But getting back, if I could, for 1 second, to the minor league thing, one thing I neglected to mention, and this isn't necessarily something that is super of interest to Alberta or anything like that, but I'm very fascinated to see what the pay scale is going to be like in minor leagues. That was a huge issue of over the last few years that have been developing, just how poorly a lot of minor league players have been paid, and basically kind of paying their own way to chase the dream. And are we going to see some meaningful changes there? Like, if you do have your own family and you're a ball player, are you going to be able to actually go and do the job? Like, it's going to be really fascinating to see what happens there, and if we're able to see minor leaguers paid what I would consider more decent wages.
2020, you have been a year, to be certain. We're going to be glad to see you go come December 31st, and hopefully January 1st is a nice way of turning the page on this thing. Ian, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us here on the podcast, and appreciate the time as always, and looking forward to seeing what we've got up our sleeves coming up in 2021.
Thanks, Joe, again for having me. I do want to give a shout out to The Scene one more time, which is a local arts and entertainment publication in Calgary that has been publishing our stories here and there. So we really appreciate that support. And also just a big shout out to our sponsors and partners who just meant so much to us. We just really appreciate the support that we do get, and we look forward to working with more organizations and people in the new year.
Absolutely, and thanks again, Ian, for joining us. And as he mentioned, thanks to all of our sponsors, the Okotoks Dogs, Dogs Academy, the Western Canadian Baseball League, and Vauxhall Academy of Baseball for all they do in making what we do possible. And most importantly, thanks to all of you for listening, downloading, reading, and supporting Alberta Dugout Stories. It means the absolute world to us that you've been along for this ride, and we can't wait to keep bringing you fresh stories heading into 2021 and beyond. If you could do us a huge favor over the break, leave us a rating and review on your podcast provider of choice if possible. Those kinds of things help spread the word about ADS. We're available on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, and Stitcher. And make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and that way you'll get the next episode whenever it's available. We'll also keep you updated on our schedule through Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Again, from the bottoms of our hearts, thank you all so very much for all of your support, no matter the platform of Alberta Dugout Stories.